just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and tall again. Hello, this is Lonnie Jones again. I want to tell you a little bit about my life story and what God's done for me. And we are coming to you direct from 549 East Maple Street in Madison, Tennessee. That's where we do all our broadcasting from. And we appreciate you tuning in and watching my life story. I've not gotten into anything too exciting so far, but this episode is going to be very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. This is an episode that I'll never forget, never have forgotten, and boy, this is where God helped me. This is what God done for me, episode 17. So hang on to your seats. If you got any seat belts, you better strap them in, because I wouldn't be here today had not been for God when I moved to Bellshire subdivision off of Dickerson Road. And I left off in the last story about we were moving from over to Bellshire subdivision, and I had a pickup truck that I was dragging. I started all this drag racing stuff, which is a big waste of money, but it was fun. And I was still playing baseball, actually. Even back then, I was still playing baseball. And so we were moving over on Bellshire Avenue, and I don't remember the name of the street, but we lived up on this hill. We moved up on this hill. It was a beautiful double-car garage. And it had everything had to do with drag racing, and everything has to do with drag racing is heavy. The wheels, the tires, an extra motor, crankshaft, drive shaft, wheels, axles, you name it, and they were in the back of this pickup truck. Didn't have no motor in it, so I had to tow it over there. Well, I went to tow it over there, and I tried to pull it up the driveway, and my truck wouldn't pull it up the driveway. So I parked it down on the road, and of course went on to work the next day, and got to telling everybody that, you know, I'd gotten everything moved, but I couldn't get my truck up the driveway. It had too much weight in it. Well, this boy by the name of Bill Zimmerly. Now, I'm going to start out with Bill Zimmerly on what Bill did to cause him to want to pull my truck, heavy truck, up the top of that driveway. You have to know what kind of a guy he was to understand that he would undertake this with a Cadillac car. He had a Cadillac car, nice Cadillac. But Bill Zimmerly came from this type of stuff right here. For instance, him and another boy sitting in their living, they love guns. They love black powder. So they were fooling with a black powder gun that you pack the powder in with a wooden stick. Well, we worked in a machine shop. Well, it tells me they must not have known much about them, because a spark will set black powder off. So him and another boy, now I'm telling you this to get around and telling you about the Cadillac pulling the truck up the hill. They're sitting in the kitchen table, and they're fooling with a muzzle loading gun of some kind, and they're packing black powder in it with a 1/4-inch piece of cold rolled steel, about a little longer than the barrel of the gun, of course. And they're putting black powder in this muzzle loading gun, and this gun goes off, and they've never found the rod. It went through the ceiling. They never did find the rod they were using to put that black powder in there. That gun fired, and that rod went out of that gun through the ceiling of the house, through the ceiling of the kitchen, out the roof, and they never did find that rod. Now, that tells you a little bit about Bill Zimmerly. And Bill Zimmerly is a genius. He is an absolute genius, but there's some things he just don't have common sense whatsoever. But he's one of the nicest guys I've ever known in my life. Bill Zimmerly was a wonderful boy. He'd do anything in this world for you. And he was a genius. I'm serious. He was a genius. Nothing he couldn't do. But there's some things he just was stupid about. Well, the next thing was about Bill. Bill was taking judo lessons. So after about 10 days, he thought he was hot stuff in judo. He's going to get him a black belt and all that stuff. Well, he comes in talking all this stuff at the machine shop. We got about 25 guys working there. And of course, everybody's listening. And of course, the first thing he started talking about breaking concrete blocks in two and all that stuff. Of course, first thing we do, we're gonna tell him he's lying. He can't do none of that stuff. He just can't do it. So to make a long story short, he said, well, at break times, and I'll show you I can break a concrete block in two. Of course, that's right up our alley. We want to see this. So now this is Bill Zimmerly. This is Bill. So at break time comes, he gets this concrete block and lays it up on something. I forget what it is out there. No, he lays it up on, I think 2x6 or something, lays it across him, and he gets down on his knees. He's gonna break this. He's gonna break this concrete block. It's a normal old concrete block, but there's nothing normal about Bill sometimes. So Bill gets down here and he goes making all these screaming noises and blowing hard and closing his mouth, puffing up his mouth. He comes over and he hits that thing, and that thing ain't moved yet. Broke his arm. He went around in a sling for 4 weeks in a sling because he tried to break that concrete block because he was taking kung fu, some kind of lessons. Karate lessons, that's what, karate lessons. He actually fractured his blooming arm. So this is what Bill does. Now, we're not done with telling things on Bill yet. Now, Bill was laughing at me telling all this stuff. I hope he sees this. He's younger than I am, so he might sometime see this. You never know. I don't even know where Bill's at anymore. But Bill, again, it was a genius. So Bill comes over to the machine shop, and he has bought this Kawasaki, fastest motorcycle they make. Kawasaki is supposed to be the fastest motorcycle they make at the time. So he bought this motorcycle. Well, we're surrounded by woods and, of course, a parking lot and everything. Because he goes telling how fast it is. Of course, the first thing we do is tell him how slow it is. First thing we go do is we go tell him that they won't do all that stuff, Bill. And we got him just all down and out. He said, I'll show you what it'll do. Well, here's what it did. Now this is Bill Zimmerly. Wonderful guy, genius. He revs that thing up. He lets the clutch out on that thing. And out through the woods, the motorcycle goes, and here he is sitting still. He's sitting on the ground. That thing's done run out from under him. Went out through the woods and just tore it all to pieces. Just almost destroyed it. Nearly a new motorcycle. Now that's Bill for you. Now here's the other end of Bill. And then we'll get back to the truck and God. The other end of Bill, we were making 50 caliber machine guns. We were making 50 caliber machine gun parts. There was a gentleman by the name of Tony, and I don't know what his last name was, had a contract with the government to make 50 caliber machine guns. We were making parts for the machine guns. And my father-in-law actually had a dozer to go back and dug a hole back by the railroad track. I don't remember how deep it was or anything, but they had a hole back there. They could actually fire those 50 caliber machine guns at targets, and they had a slow motion camera that showed how fast the bullet was going, how many bullets per second it would shoot. They had 2-inch steel plates laying up over on the top of that pit. It was a long pit, about 25, 30 foot long, and they were firing into a target or something down at the far end. Now they weren't down in there with it. They fired it remotely. It was a remotely fired gun, but it was pictures being taken when it fired. And that thing would lift a 4x8 sheet of steel, hot rolled steel, 2 inches thick. When that thing shoot until as long as those would come off they would come up off the ground, that fire, when that machine gun would start shooting. It was amazing at the pressure there was around that gun going down that ditch or what it was they had. But those 2 inches of cold roll would come off the ground when they'd fire that thing. Getting back to Bill Zimmerly and 50 caliber machine gun, Bill Zimmerly could build those parts. He was a genius. He could tell you what would work, what wouldn't work. He could put it together, tear it apart. He could do most anything with a 50 caliber machine gun. And the last I heard of it, he was still working for people that were producing because he was so smart at it that he was just a genius at making these parts. And so that was sort of a stupid side of Bill and a real smart side of Bill. Bill was just, like I said before, he was just a great guy. Wasn't nothing he could do for you. So let's get back now. Told you how dumb he was on one end, how smart he is on the other. We're going to go back to dumb one more time. He tells me that he can take that Cadillac and pull that truck up the hill. Well, first of all, the truck totally empty without a motor in it weighed about 2,500 pounds to start with. That was over a ton. Then, with all the stuff I had in the back of it, and it was a long bed, all the stuff I had in the back of it and in the cab weighed at least another half 1,000 pounds or more. I'm saying we're looking at 3,000 to 3,500 pounds he's going to pull up in this grade, and the grade's about like that. Now, what I've done is I've filled the cab up with parts and everything, and I've locked the doors. So the doors are locked. So Bill goes over, and I'm still at work. I'm at work. Bill gets off at 3:30, and I'm still at work. Bill goes over and proceeds to pull that car up that driveway. Well, right at the end of my driveway, going down the road, you turn left up into my driveway. Well, straight across the end of my driveway is a house with a big, beautiful, big picture window in it. I mean, it's a big picture window. It's like a double picture window. And I mean, it's directly in line with my driveway that he's pulling this car up. Well, Bill pulls that car up the driveway. He does. The Cadillac pulls it up there. But when he gets to the top, it rolled forward just enough to unhook the chain. The chain on the truck come unhooked. The doors was locked. He couldn't get in the truck to stop it. Back off that driveway, that truck goes right toward that house. And here's where God come in. Better pay attention. This is real. That truck went down that driveway, probably doing 30 miles an hour time it got to the road. It went up over the road and jumped down, and when it hit the ground on the other side, those wheels cut, and that truck went all the way around that man's house, all the way around, and stopped at the end of his driveway on the other end of the house. Made a complete circle, didn't hit a tree one, didn't hit nothing, and ended up at the end of the other man's driveway. If you don't think God cut them wheels, He did. Anyway, had that not happened, that truck would have went completely through that house. That truck would have went through those picture windows, went completely through every wall in that house, out the back, and went out. It would have went out the back, because the first wall where the picture window was at wouldn't have had no effect on it whatsoever. The next wall would have slowed it a little bit, and the next wall would have been going out the back of the house had God not turned those wheels. So don't tell me. I know. Anyway, that's what God was there for me that day. I was still at work. I didn't even know this. Till I come home, I didn't see no truck nowhere. And Bill was standing down at the end of the driveway, telling me what happened. And I walked down through there, and that truck made a, when it come back down on the other side of the road, those wheels cut. And it made a perfect circle all the way around the back of that house. Never touched nothing. Never touched nothing. So that's what God done for me, boy, that day. Let me tell you, and that's nothing. But I had to tell you about that because there's so many people out there. I don't even think there is a God. I don't know, but I know for a fact He's real. God is real. So that's a story that I wanted to tell you. I couldn't make stuff like that up. You can't make stuff like that up. So needless to say, I got me a record. And I got that truck up and put it in the garage up there. And I think I sold everything at that point. I believe at that point, I just about sold. I think I got just about out of the business because, and you know, till this day, back in those days, God wasn't on my mind. I was just young and free and full of everything. And I wasn't thinking about the future. I was just thinking about that day. Well, but since those times, so many times I've thought about, and I think that's what started getting me thinking more about when something happened to me. I would think, you know, without God, God had to do that. The only way could save me was through God, and I believe that more than anything. I just believe it. Anyway, so much for that. But that is dumb Bill, smart Bill, dumb Bill again. But Bill overall is a genius, and God is the genius of all geniuses. He saved. There's no telling what would have become of that. And I don't think I had a dime worth of insurance. Don't believe there's a dime worth of insurance. And but anyway, we'll stop that. And I'll talk a little bit about my baseball playing because long about then I was still playing baseball and drag racing. When drag racing, of course, that's still another story. And I can tell you, in fact, I'll get the baseball behind me. I'll get the baseball behind us on this episode here because I still need to come back and talk about the drag racing because God is still involved all along here. God is still involved. Because that truck went around that house and didn't go through it, God hadn't registered up here yet. God hadn't registered yet. And I'm still drag racing. I am still drag racing. And I'm going to tell you what God done for me again in the drag racing. But I'm going to finish up my baseball before I get back into the drag racing end of it. We'll get into the drag racing thing, the rest of that on the next episode, on episode 18. But let me finish up. I was playing baseball, and I had, at that point in time, I was beginning to nip a little long. I drank a little long. And when I was young like that, in my early 20s, I was still very fast on my feet, played good baseball, and I was always better at defense than I was offense, but I could run like a deer. That's about it. And so, but every now and then I've taken a little nip and everything, and my baseball was slowing down. I could steal any base out there. It didn't make no difference what it was. I could steal them any time. Didn't make no difference when. That's how fast I was. But all of a sudden, I'm a nipping a little along getting this alcohol in me, and I'm not all going over. I'm not drunk or nothing like that, but just one or two drinks slows you down. Well, here I am. All of a sudden, guy picks me off at second base because I'm too far off the plate. So he picks me off. Well, I've never been picked off a base. Never. All the baseball playing I ever did, I never got nothing. So anyway, and then I got noticing I wasn't running near as fast as I used to could run, and things, I was getting thrown out when I shouldn't be in, and things started coming together, and I realized that probably what drinking I was doing, which wasn't much, but what drinking I was doing had an effect on it. So I chose to quit playing baseball. So I quit playing baseball, and that's when I went into doing a lot of drag racing. Is when I started drinking and quit baseball. When I quit the baseball, then I started drag racing more, and of course drag racing is nothing but money down the hole. That's all that is. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm one of those guys that I don't lose. When I go after something, I go to win. And needless to say, there was several times my phone bill wasn't paid, my light bill wasn't paid, the rent was late. All these kind of things, alcohol and drag racing had everything to do with all that. So I got to drinking a little more, drag racing. I really got into drag racing, hot and heavy. So they were, I first started going to the drag races. Well, I could beat one or two cars, and I had an old 55 Oldsmobile. Had a hydromatic transmission in it, and there was some of the stoutest transmissions ever was. So anyway, me not knowing anything about drag racing, I thought you could just carry your car you drove to work every day up there and drag race and win. Well, it don't work that way. It don't work that way, and it didn't take me long until I got beat 3 or 4 times, and then it got in my blood, and I said, well, you know, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to stop this from being beat. So when you're running stock automobiles and drag racing or most anything, you are only allowed to do so much to a vehicle to keep it legal. So I was allowed to bore it 60 over, and I was allowed to grind the heads on it. I was allowed to put starter valve springs on it, all this stuff. Well, I got the motor up and got it powerful. Well, comes to find out, there's a whole lot more to it than that. And as a matter of fact, I could have took and done what I could have taken the stock rear end that was under it, ring and pinion, and put, say, a 410 or 456 rear end into it, and that same motor would have probably have won. But no, I went to the motor first. So after I got the motor running great and knew how good it would run, I find out that it needs to be geared right. With running 3/16 of a mile, most of the drag tracks around were 3/16 of a mile. So Union Hill was, of course, the big drag strip at the time. So I found out from all these other people what kind of gear ratio that you need to go in there. Well, 55 Oldsmobile, you can't buy the rear end I needed. It didn't. They never made one for that car. That I needed a 456 is what I needed. I could find a 411 that would fit it. And I could order a 410 that would fit it. They wouldn't make me a 410, but they were very expensive. But that's okay. I didn't need to pay the phone bill or the light bill. I needed to ring in. I needed to bring your opinion. So I get all fixed up here. I started out and I got my 411 ring in, and I started beating more people. Then I had to make me about, at that time, now we talking about 1965 now, somewhere in that area. And we're talking about, I'm beginning to beat more cars. Well, I finally got enough money together to get me a 410 rear end. When I got me a 410 rear end, I could beat every car but one. There's one car that I couldn't beat. Most of the time I couldn't beat him. Sometimes I could beat him. Well, I was talking to an old fella one time that used to race many years before me, and he did dirt track racing. He must have been 65 years old, and here I am at the time. I think I was about 25 years old. He said, Lonnie, he said, if you can find a 1939 Pontiac, if you can find a 1939 Pontiac car, he said, your worries are over. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's got a 456 rear end in it. And I want you to know, I don't worry for the better or for the worse, but God, I knew where this one at. Been sitting there for 25 years, sitting in the woods and in the trees, bushes growed all around it. It was sitting within 2 miles of where I was born. Now we're talking, I'm 25 years old now. And that car has been sitting there all these years in the bushes. 39 Pontiac. I go down there and sure enough, it's still sitting there. Again, whether God, whether or not that was, I guess it's a, God's got me in training, I think he's got me in training. He's trying to show me what's right and what's wrong and what it's going to take to show me how wrong something is. So I'm going to have to almost stop right here on this one, because in the next episode, God is in the next episode big time. On 18, I'm going to tell you what else God done for me. And I think God's got me in training, helping me with the good things to show me what bad was going to come, where the bad was going to come out. So I'm going to break off here on number 17. Okay, I'd like to tell you, Rita and myself go to church every Sunday morning, Friendship Missionary Baptist Church at 101 Flat Ridge Road in Millersville, Tennessee. And we got a fiery preacher, so y'all come. If you can't come to see us at church, in church, we'd love to have you in church with us and meet all of our friends and neighbors up there. But if you can't do that, you can always pull us up on Facebook, and you can watch us live on Facebook. So until episode 18, we'll see you then, and you have a good week and a good night. Thank you. And we're going to do you a couple of real pretty songs. I hope you'll enjoy them. One of them, Rita's going to do hers first. They call Holding Up the Ladder. Is that right?
That's
Kid,
it.
B flat. Let's do it. 3.
They're holding up the ladder that I'm climbing on, and I'm climbing up the ladder, and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy there shall be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. As I climb this gospel ladder, always heeding every sign, know my Savior's with me, and he's teaching me to climb. Every day that I'm climbing, there's a battle for me. Every step on the ladder is another victory. Oh, they're holding up the ladder that I'm climbing on, and I'm climbing up the ladder, and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy There's a mansion being built for me somewhere in glory land, and this ladder that I'm climbing is a part of his plan. I can hear the angels beckoning and the climbing don't stop. There's a crown of life awaiting for you when you reach the top. Oh, they're holding up the ladder that I'm climbing on, and I'm climbing up the ladder and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy there shall be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. Oh, they're holding up the ladder that I'm climbing on, and I'm climbing up the ladder and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy there shall be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. And the angels are holding up this ladder for me.
That was fine, Rita. Yes, it was.
Thank
Great
you.
job, everybody. God dang. I believe y'all played that before. Called Coming River. And Daly and Vincent had this out. And they still got it out, of course, I'm sure. So we're going to attempt to do it. It's called Coming River. Most everybody watching this down around Nashville knows what the Coming River is at. So let's do the Coming River, Ronnie.
1, 2, 3.
I left old Kentucky in a blinding fall, headed for the Southland on a cedar lawn. All about Savannah, saw the sky turn blue, headed for the Southland with a six-man crew. Coming river, carry me on down the line, sunny Tennessee, Jersey maids are waiting, lonely as can be. Coming river, let me feel that southern breeze. On the river, the weather it got rough. Headed for the south bank in a big rock club. Working like a devil, turned his boat around. 2 miles south of Carthage, made it safe and sound. Coming river, carry me on down the line. Sunny Tennessee, Jersey maids are waiting, long as can be. Coming river, let me feel that southern breeze. Days of travel and I'll draw my pay, headed for the Southland, be my Shirley May. Oregon of sorghum and a sack of flour, $15 waiting and 7 cents an hour. Coming river, carry me on down the line, sunny Tennessee, Shirley May's a waiting, long as can be. Coming river, let me feel that southern breeze. southern breeze. Cumberland River, let me feel that southern breeze. Cumberland River, let me feel that southern breeze. Jesus died on the cross from a dogwood tree. He gave his life and soul just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and tall again.